This world needs places like this who give people a second chance in their health, can keep people younger, can bounce people back from horrific injuries, and also a inspirational story, because it's not only stem cells, it's not only physical, it's mental too.
Welcome to the cpistemcells Cellular Performance Institute podcast. We have Ian on today. Ian, I'm going to murder your last name, so I'm going to let you say it.
Heinisch.
Heinisch. Ian,
yes,
the Hurricane Heinisch. And Ian, this is your second time down here.
Yeah.
It's great to see you back. Yeah. And, thanks for reaching out to me and letting me know that things were going well for you and things were going good. And just catch us up. What have you been up to and what's been going on?
Yeah. So since I came down here in February, I've, stem cells, it's not a quick fix, but it fixes the root cause of it. It grows it back. So it took about 3 months and I started to feel a little bit better. 4 or 5 months, I started to feel incredible. And then I noticed I was back in the training. I was light sparring, which I hadn't done in probably 8 months. I got into the gym, I sparred, and I would say I was 92% better with my head. Like I was really close. And I noticed my heart rate started pounding out of my chest. So I got my blood work done, and I had lowered my thyroid medication because that was one of the reasons I came here, was to help my thyroid. And they said my thyroid went from hypo, which is underactive, to hyper, which is overactive. And my doctor said it's probably because I'm taking the medication and I don't need it. So I stopped taking the medication. It was like 3 days. I kind of felt weird. And now I've felt the best I've felt. I've been like 3 weeks to a month off of the medication that I've been taking for 4 years. My head feels better. And I just noticed just like my joints and even my knees I just feel better.
That's great. That's awesome news to hear. And you were telling me yesterday when we ran into each other too, you're looking to get back into the cage, huh?
Yeah. So I really wanted to get back down here, especially when I reached out to you and you said, yeah, come back down, because I was looking at possibly fighting January or February. So I wanted to get one more treatment in because I think it'll just push me over the edge of completely healed, especially with my head stuff. And I'm looking to go back, recover after this, whatever few weeks it takes, and get back at it. So
Ian, you talk about a brain injury. What happened to your brain? Tell us that story.
So I fought June last year, so it's coming up on a year and a half, and I took a good knee. I felt terrible, right? It was a combination of my thyroid had made me put on an extra 10 pounds, which was really hard to cut weight. I felt lethargic all the time. I went into that fight, all my levels were off. And one thing's off in your body, usually other things will start to come unscrewed. And my legs were shaking after the fight. I felt like I wanted to jump out the cage after the first round. I never felt so tired. Took a good knee, threw a big overhand, ducked into a switch knee, split me, I think it's like 8 stitches or something. Got out of that fight, no symptoms, felt fine. Really was hungry to get back in there, that bad taste in your mouth after losing a fight. So I went back to the gym about a month after. Probably shouldn't have been doing 10 rounds, whatever it was. It was last round, exhausted, threw a head kick, got a head kick return, didn't block it, sat me down, and the symptoms spiraled out of control. I felt terrible, headaches, anxiety, light sensitivity, the whole shebang. And about a month of it healing, I tried jumping back in the cage. It was more just grappling. It was just high intensity. That's what MMA is. It's a lot of car crashes. And I just spiraled it out of control. It just got worse and worse. And I've had concussions before, but this one was different. I wasn't healing. And that's when I heard about stem cells. That's when I reached out to you guys. And now I'm feeling like the healing actually happened. I needed that help of some stem cells to help that healing process happen.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, it's concussions are interesting. I mean, do you find I was training with one of my old fighters named John Salter, and he was a middleweight, and I had actually cracked my skull, not fighting. I had actually just fallen and cracked my skull. That's a whole nother story. Too much to drink one night, and so about 2 weeks later, I was like, oh, let's just tap. He had a fight coming up, and he just barely tapped me in the chin, and it completely dropped me. and I ended up getting up, I lost my balance, broke my ankle in the cage that day because it was just a little tap. So I say that because, you were talking about not recovering from it. Obviously, I got back in way too soon, even though I didn't think we were doing anything. You said you heard it grappling. That's what reminded me of it.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about the concussions that, it just takes a little bit after a good one to have some, big long-term effects?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things. It's crazy. Concussions are such a weird, unique injury because as a bruise in your knee, you can see it and nobody can really understand what you're feeling. You can go get MRI, it shows nothing. Unless you have a brain bleed, an aneurysm, something like that, they can't really measure a concussion. I have found ways that they can do a brain mapping to see where the electrodes are. It's basically like an EKG for your brain and you can see where things are off. But I would say it's not letting your head heal. Your head can heal. Like after you cracked your head, you should have let it heal. Even though you weren't feeling symptoms, there was probably swelling. Then when it got tapped again lightly, it flared everything up. And that's kind of, I feel like what happened with me. I didn't let things properly heal. And it's weird, right? I'll get in wars in the octagon and that adrenaline's flowing. I feel fine after. And sometimes I'm drilling and I get hit unexpectedly and it flares up symptoms. So it's like, and it's not even hard. So the brain's a very unique thing. It can heal, but you have to give it that time to heal. And it's up to you to be the judge to say, hey, I need to take a month off.
Yeah. I mean, one of our good friends, Tate Fletcher, Tate had a serious traumatic brain injury and he had stayed with us for a couple months back, maybe a year and a half ago, coming down and doing some different treatments. But he did a magnetic field therapy. Do you remember what that was?
I don't remember what it was.
Have you heard of any a magnetic field type therapy for
Do you know what it
TBI?
looked like?
It was some magnets. It was a big machine basically that they put over the head, and it had something to do with almost like a pulsed electromagnetic field in the brain, but it wasn't that. You know?
Yeah. They're trying to find all different ways. I found a really good doctor, McWhorter. It's chiropractic and neurology in Denver, Colorado, and they do a mixture between the gyrostem, which when people have vertigo, they feel like they're spinning. So they put you in this machine and you are spinning and you have to find these laser points and you have a laser pen and you're hitting these points and making the thing beep. And then he'll make you read numbers, do math problems, count, memorize a list of just random words. And then you have to say it to him after that. So it's like, people think like any injury that you get, people think, oh, just rest it. No, you actually need to let it rest a little bit, let the inflammation come down, but you need to work it and rehab it, give it that PT. And so there's all different styles of how to fix the brain. And obviously, if you put stem cells in the spinal cord, it can repair that inflammation. So I think a combination of that with some other therapies, brain training, the Dynavision's a good one. Hyperbaric chamber is amazing for basically anything. Hyperbaric chambers, just everyone should own one and just go in there every night. My doctor gave me one time. I tried sleeping in the night. It got too hot, but man, it made me feel amazing. And so there's so many different techniques of healing the brain, but it's still so unknown.
Yeah. Is there a specific protocol right now? I mean, there wasn't 10, 12 years ago when I was in the sport, but like now, is there a specific protocol for fighters after they experience a concussion?
The UFC, if you get knocked out cold or TKO'd, I'm sure they'll be like, the commission will say, hey, 4 to 6 weeks. But people always ask me, well, are you cleared to fight? I'm like, I can fight whenever I want. It's just, I don't feel right. And that's the hard part. That's what I see with brain recovery. It's just people don't understand how you feel. And there's not really a protocol. There's not really, like I said, I found this guy in Denver that has a protocol. And that's the best thing and most organized thing I've seen. But I don't even know that the NFL, or at the gym, right? You get KO'd in practice and you could still show up the next day and train. No one's going to tell you. I mean, maybe your good friend might say, hey, man, don't do that. But there's not really a standard for it. Some people get rocked all the time and they're good. Some people get touched a few times and they have crazy symptoms. So it's like, it's such an unknown thing still.
Yeah, I wish there were.
The brain mapping that you're doing, you're showing me a little bit about on the phone. Like what's it actually looking at? What are the differences that you've seen?
Yeah, so I know I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but from my fighter perspective and what I remember of him telling me, it's like there's different brain waves, and it's like beta, theta, hyper beta. So it's like what current state, and there's one like when you're waking up, you're just kind of moving, you're focused, you're hyper focused, and then you're in fight or flight. So it's the sliding scale of where your brain waves are at. And what they do to test it, they put this electrodes on your head, and you watch the screen, and you just watch this for like, I think it's like 15 minutes, and they measure your brainwave. Then you do it with your eyes closed, and that's where they get the measure. And it's weird when one of the ways they do a recover for that, it's called neurofeedback, and you watch like a Planet Earth movie. It doesn't really matter, something kind of calming. And when you're not focused, it'll go dark. And when you focus, it lights up like the normal screen would. And it's like, like it makes this little noise. Like it almost like feeds your brain where you're like, I want to focus more. Because my problem is I would go from just like waking up to like kind of starting to be focused, boom, straight to fight and flight. And so that would give me huge amounts of anxiety. So I would show up to the gym, and it would be like no warm up. It wouldn't be like 20, 40, 60, 80. And then you're up there. It would be like 20, 30, boom, 80. So I'm just like, so that was giving me anxiety. And like I said, this doctor has a great protocol with it. And obviously the stem cells help tremendously.
Yeah, what was the place in Colorado you're talking about?
It's called McWhorter. It's Dr. McWhorter, and it's chiropractor and neurology. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I would love to connect you guys with him, because I'm sure you guys could do a referral thing, because he gets people from MS, stroke, and concussion with all the Broncos, Avalanche, and he does a bunch of the fighters out there as well.
Interesting.
So is he helping you like retrain your brain with it, or is it just looking at what your brain's doing?
Yeah. So like he'll come in and we do all these tests where like one thing that I remember I scored very bad with, I put like a closed something to block my eyes where I couldn't see, like a handkerchief or something that I couldn't see. And I just marched in place. And he's like, just march in place. And I turned almost a 180, and I didn't know.
Wow.
And I opened my eyes. He took it off, and he's like, or he first said, do you think you moved? And I was like, no. And then after I did the training with him, I would go out there for a week at a time. Like in between I was doing stem cells, I would go out there. I would do 2 sessions twice a day. So I would do all this stuff, and then I would go take a nap, come back and do all of his stuff again. I would do gyrostem, dynavision, neurofeedback, and then hyperbaric chamber. And I'd do that twice a day for a week, and I would feel it was like boom. And then so after I did all that stuff, we did the same marching thing, and this time I only turned just a hair. So he does stuff where you feel like, do you feel this? Do you do that? Touch here. And then he'll do like the dynavision where you'll stare at the screen and it'll light up and you hit it. And then he'll make you do opposite. Right hand touch, left hand march. Or so it would be, right hand touch, left leg march. So it'd be like boom, 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 boom. So like it's stuff that really activates all levels of your brain. And it's something. Even after Sanford has a dynavision. After I'd spar and I'd feel a little bit almost vertigo, I would go do the dynavision and it would settle it down. So yeah, it's very complicated. I'm not 100% science, but I feel the results. I'll send people there. Anyone who has a concussion, I send them there because it's helped. And obviously I send people down here too, because I know the combination of it, regenerating themselves and reactivating the brain, I feel like that's the perfect combo to bring your brain back to 100%.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much stuff. I mean, traumatic brain injury, obviously for fighters, is a big thing. Our military is another big thing. And as you were saying, like there's a lot that's just, unknown. But I think, anytime we find these things that help, that might not be very, very well known. It's important for people to get the opportunity to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have a brain injury, when you're messed up, you just want to feel normal. And I searched for everything. Like I went to so many different neurologists. Some would just say, just sleep in a dark room. And I tried that for a while, and then that was depressing, and I was like really depressed. And then finally I met this guy, and it took forever. I went through so many different type of people. I even met someone that did what he did, but they didn't do it. They didn't slowly ease me up. They threw me in there, and I felt nauseous, and I felt sick, and it really turned me off of that. And I found this guy who had his own protocol, just keeps leveling you up. And you see the growth because the numbers don't lie. You continue, your numbers go up. After I did the stem cells, my numbers went up tremendously. And then I would go back to Florida, and I would come back, and they would stay. So that just shows that, because before I would leave, and I would have to start back over. But you see the adaptation, that the stem cells were like holding me in the same spot. I wasn't getting any worse, even though I wasn't training the certain exercises that he has.
Nice. Now, talk about how you got involved in mixed martial arts fighting. I was watching a video where you were giving a speech to our patients, and I learned a little bit about you. But kind of go back to the beginning, and share your story.
Yeah. So I mean, I was a very talented wrestler. I started at 11, which is a later age for most wrestlers, and I was a few-time state champ. I pinned my way through state sophomore, junior year, a few-time All-American, second at Ironman. I took fourth at senior nationals, but I got prescribed Adderall at a very young age. I was super hyper, and then got prescribed Xanax at age 17. And I come from a long line of addiction, and it just completely derailed my life. I was chasing that addiction my entire life, which ended up getting me caught with a couple thousand pills ecstasy in Denver, fleeing the country to Europe, fugitive on the run for 2.5 years, and then was basically homeless in Spain and sleeping on park benches. Met some Colombian guys, and they said, "Hey, come live with us, man. We don't want to see you like this." And 3 months of getting healthy and good, they were like, "Hey, let's make some real money." And started trafficking from Venezuela, Aruba, Colombia, and was trafficking drugs, and really at the point in my life where I was chasing the high, even if I had to risk dying. Like, it didn't matter to me. That's how the value I had in my life at the time. And got caught, went to prison, and God had always been putting on my heart, "You're going to fight someday. You're going to fight someday." Even when I would get injured, like being drunk and stupid, I was like, "No, it's going to mess up my fighting career." I didn't know I had a fighting career. Like, I was just partying, but I had it in my heart and my soul that I was going to do it. And once I got locked up, it was the biggest blessing that could ever happen. There was a wrestling program called Lucha Canadia. And it's kind of crazy that Juan Espino is a UFC fighter. His father was locked up in there and coached me in prison. And wow. So I fell in love with wrestling again. There was a kickboxing program there. I got transferred. I got Con Air to the north of Spain. They had a boxing program there. I just boxed the full time. And I was like, I'm going to be UFC champ. I'm going to get out of prison and be UFC champ. I'll beat guys up in sparring. I'll be like, "Don't worry, I'm going to be the champ someday." And they'd be like, "Yeah, this guy." And I got extradited back to the States and did a couple months in Rikers Island, which was rough, but I survived and drove in a van with the U.S. Marshal, made it to the States, and finally Jefferson County in Colorado bailed out 2014 Valentine's Day, and went 4-0 as an amateur, all finishes, got to 8-0 as a pro. Finally, they said, "Win this fight in LFA, the pinnacle of your career. You win this fight, you go to the UFC, you lose, you're in the back of the line." Well, a year before that, I had torn my LCL, and I went to the doctor. They gave me a prescription of 40 Percocets. Instantly hooked, man. I was doing Oxy. I was buying it off the streets. I was going to Mexico, buying it on the pharmacies, and it was a vicious cycle I couldn't break. I would quit 3 weeks before a fight. I would get deathly ill and withdrawals and sick, and then I'd feel better. I'd fight, and then of course to celebrate, I would do more drugs and I would take more pills. And finally, man, I lost that fight. I fought Marcus Perez. I lost. I got submitted, and I went on this camping trip. I was completely broken. I was hopeless. I was suicidal. I was everything. I felt no value in my life, and I just surrendered my life to God, man. And at that time, He healed me of my addiction. I quit doing drugs. At that time, I was broke, living in my buddy's basement, not in the UFC, and never paid taxes in my life. 1 year later, I had got in the UFC, broke in the top 10 of the UFC. My second fight, I was number 9 in the world. I just took short notice fights. I was just like, let's go. And I was beating the guys. And then, and I met my wife, married her, bought a house, and obviously there's been some trials since then. I basically was thrown in with the wolves. My third fight was Derek Brunson. My fourth fight was Omari Akhmedov, and I fought Kelvin Gastelum. So very quick I was thrown there, and I would say since my thyroid flared up, I didn't feel the same. I didn't feel as good. I gained weight. Weight cuts became hard, and I really was at the worst I've ever been my last fight. But man, stem cells have given me hope, for healing and coming back to where I used to be, because the doctor said there's no way you can heal your thyroid. Well, now guess what? I don't need the medication. I don't crash in the day. My weight's come down by 5 pounds. I just went to the UFC PI, tested every test you could do there. They said, Ian, your weight is down 6 pounds from when you came last time. You're the second explosive in the UFC who has taken this test, any weight class. Your cardio looks good. And I'm not even in fight camp. And they just said, I look different because I truly believe it's a stem cell. I mean, there's no other reason. So that's a little bit about my story, and the stories are still being written.
Wow, that's incredible.
Super cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure part of it too is you're fixing your brain, as well. But, what I want to ask you about is, so you're in prison and they let you fight? Like they have fight camp in prison? Like what?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So I was locked up in the Tenerife, the Canary Islands. It's islands off coast of Morocco. It's owned by the Spanish. And what a blessing. Because I was actually watching one of them shows where it's like, it was about the El Dorado airport in Colombia, Bogota, and they catch smugglers. That's all they do. And for a kilo of coke inside someone's stomach, which I got taken through that exact x-ray, you get 8 to 14 years. So I had no idea I was looking at that long. And I got put through that x-ray. The Colombians had put this special paper on it, and I thought they were BSing me. I didn't know, but it worked. I passed. And so going back to the Spanish prison, what a blessing I got locked up there. Yeah, they had a wrestling program. If you didn't get in a fight and you stayed out of trouble, it was a respect mod. They let us do kickboxing, which is very minimal supervised. The K1 Spanish champ was in there, put on these little broken gloves, and we just spar in a gym with bars everywhere. I mean, dust on the floor, and probably wasn't the smartest training. I probably got a few concussions in there, especially being new. And then, when I got Connor to the north of Spain, they had a boxing program.
So, let's catch up. So there's a kickboxing program in the prisons in Spain, like really low supervision. You think that helps the system? Like, does it help you stay out of trouble while you're locked up?
Absolutely. I think so, because you're letting out all the aggression you have. You feel accomplished because we would do some techniques, some drills, but we'd spar a lot too. If you have any problems with someone, you can just spar with them and get it over with. And you're not putting that aggression on other inmates and not the guards. And honestly, it kind of establishes a pecking order that is legitimate. So it's not this walking around. It's like, bro, I beat your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll do it again. So it was like people knew their roles. And I loved it because I got to learn Spanish. I got to go to church. I got to wear my street clothes. My girlfriend I got a conjugal visit every 2 weeks with her. So it was really like living. It reformed me. And then when they contracted me to the north of Spain, they let me start an MMA program. I wrote all these letters in Spanish, got it approved, started an MMA. I'm like, I'm an MMA. And they would come, they would check on us once in a while. And when guys would have beef, we'd bring them to the MMA class. We'd let them scrap, stop them before it's too late. And people loved it, man. You got a black guy and the guard would be like, what happened? Be like, oh, good training done. Good training. That's how you say it. And they'd be like, yeah, man, that's good. So it was cool. Like, I don't know if American prisons are a revolving door. And this is something I want to be an activist about someday, because I was in Rikers Island, which is probably one of the worst prisons in America. You literally sit around, join a gang, stare at each other, fight over chairs and toasters and stupid stuff like that. There's nothing to do except join a gang. There's no weights. They don't let you weightlift anymore. They don't let you do any activities. All you can do is become a barber, and barbershops don't hire felons. So it's like straight up, it's crime school. You become worse when you go there, and you get out and you go right back in. And it's sad that it's become a business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they you started an MMA program. Where did they con-air you to?
To a place called Leon. It was in the north of Spain. It was at the very tip of the peninsula.
Okay, so you went in there and you started an MMA program.
Yeah,
there?
so I stayed out of trouble for like a month. Then they moved me up to a respect mod where you get more privileges, and I did the boxing twice a day and weightlifting one day. So it was a straight fight camp. Like all I was doing, and with terrible food, eating bread and like jelly and like just praying someone would put money on your book so you could buy a canned tuna. And yeah, we started, and then I met some of the guys that were cool. I met, politic with the guards, become cool with them and be like, hey man, we really want to start an MMA program. Like I have some experience. This guy has some experience. We want to just train. And it took like 3 to 5 weeks. I don't remember exactly, of writing letters to the warden. And finally he approved it. And the guards came like the first 3 practices and watched. And we just ran. Like we did jiu-jitsu. We did drilling. We did a little bit of wrestling. And then they were like, these guys aren't, nothing wrong here. And they let us do it. So it was like such a blessing that I was there instead of getting in Colombia or doing real time in America. So it was a 2.5 year training camp for me.
Yeah. So you were in the Canary Islands, that prison for how long?
Tenerife for 1.5 years, Leon for about a year and a couple months, and then Rikers Island for close to 2 months. And yeah.
And so when they flew you back to Rikers,
they flew me back to New York.
Yeah.
And I landed in New York. I was free for the first time in 2.5 years. I was so weird on the plane, just like taking shots, trying to talk to girls. People were like, what's wrong with this guy? And the flight attendant had my passport, and they gave it to me right as I exited the plane. And I walked up to the security checkpoint people, and they're like, Mr. Heinisch, how long have you been out the country? And I was like, a while. And they're like, what's a while? And they're like, I was like, 5 years. She's like, yeah, come with me. And took me in the bag, and I knew I was on the run for felony warrants for drug trafficking, a couple thousand pills of ecstasy. So I was like, man, and I fled the country originally hoping statute of limitation, maybe they'd forget about it, but that doesn't exist. So I went to the Jamaica Queen. They first put me where I thought about running, but then I was like, man, after 9/11, I'm not getting anywhere. They're gonna get me. And then because I didn't want to go back to jail, and I didn't want to go to jail in New York. And then I did 3 days in a Jamaica Queens jailhouse, which was rough on a weekend.
Why Jamaica Queens?
I don't know. That's where
the airport is.
Yeah.
I thought it's something with like Jamaica embassy.
No, it's part of New York.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
I got it.
So it's just a real rough area in New York.
Yep.
It was a nasty place to go to jail for the weekend. Probably one of the only white boys in. It was just people were overdosing on heroin, coming off heroin, puking, crapping themselves. It was gross. And I'm just sitting there in the corner waiting, and they keep calling people, and people keep coming in. I'm like, hey, what's my turn? And they're like, shut up, you're a different case. And I was like, man, finally they took me, went in front of the judge, said, you're a fugitive on the run. You're going to Rikers Island without bail. Boom. And my public defender comes up to me, and she's like, you got to go to protect custody. She's like, you're a white boy. You're like, no, you got it. And I was like, I didn't even know what Rikers Island was. And then I was like, throw me at the wolves, I'll lead the pack. That's my mentality. I'd been locked up 2.5 years. I was like, what can they do to me? And I'm driving on this bridge, and I'm looking out the window. I'm like, man, this is really an island. And there's like all these cages and like open fences. And I'm like, it's pretty intense. Then I'm walking down the hallway with this guard, and he's like, man, you must be one bad white boy. And I was like, why is that? And he's like, I've never seen one of you in this wing, because I was going to maximum security on top of it because I was a fugitive. I had no idea. Speaking Spanish saved my life. Let's just say it that way. It was a God-saved thing. I got in an altercation with the gang, and they put a SOS on me, which means stab on sight. And I knew I was going to get jumped in the morning. I called the guard. I said, bro, you got to get me out of this cell. They're going to kill me. He said, F you, white boy, and slammed the door in my face. It's like a picture I can never forget in my head. And I stayed up all night with the Latin King guy, and I was just like, man, they're going to come. And I'm like, making weapons and armor and just turning my whole bunk upside down, because I knew they was just going to open the door and let them come get me. And I saw it. I saw dudes get stomped out. Like other gangs would come in. They would get stomped out, bloody on the floor, and the guard's eating a sandwich. The guard would come in from the morning and work, and he'd be like, what up, bro? What up, bro? To the inmates. So these guys were boys from the block.
Right.
The gang was, or the prison was so corrupt, bro. It was like the guards were in with it, and people were dying weekly in there. And anyways, it was the morning before. They opened the doors at 6, 5 o'clock. 2 big football player dudes came and said, Heinisch. I jumped up. I was like ready. And they said, let's go. And I'm like, who are you guys? And they're like, U.S. Marshal. And these dudes are looking at me crazy because I got blankets wrapped around me like double ways. Like I'm like trying to just like cover up my vitals with all these like, because I already got attacked with a knife. Everyone has knives and they're nasty looking things. And they walked me out of that jail, man. Threw me on a van, shackled me like this, threw me in the back of a van and circled the country for 11 days like this.
In a van?
In a van. And it's February in New York, which you know is freezing. The heater was broken. So at night, we're just shivering. Please, man, it's cold. Shut up. We're not going to feed you. Bro, I'm telling you, if you want to get locked up, go to Europe. Because if you get locked up in America, it is rough. Yeah. Like, they treated us like animals, bro. I remember I had to pee, and they only let us go pee every 6 hours. Only legally have to let us go pee every 6 hours because they can only do it in a jail. And so I'm complaining to the guard, and he bounces a Gatorade bottle off my head and says, deal with it. And I remember just having to like hit my knees and I pissed all over myself. Dude, it was like, man. And I'm telling you, like 11 days of not sleeping. Like I was like hallucinating.
What were they doing driving? Why were they driving?
Think every time I think they cross the border, they make extra money. So they went to New York, to Pennsylvania, to Vermont, to New York. So 48 hours we're back in New York. And I'm like, what is going on? And they just went like this, just circles. So it took 11 days. And they were required every 72 hours to let you in a jail to sleep. But for some reason, every time I would hit the pillow, Heinisch, and I'd be called to the next van. So I don't know if it was just bad luck on my part, but it was like, I looked rough after. And then they would just buy you fast food. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's.
And so after the 11 days, what happened?
After the 11 days, I got to Jefferson County.
That's in
Colorado.
Okay.
And I was like, thank God. I was like, I'm finally here. And my mom bailed me out the next day from my previous cases. And yeah, I was a free man. I remember I went from being with all Moroccans and like Hispanic, like Spaniards, to being with all blacks, Puerto Ricans, to being with all white boys. And then I went straight to a yoga festival with my dad. When I bailed out, I went to this yoga class and it was all chicks. And I was just like, I'm laughing and everyone's looking at me. And I'm just like, these people have no idea. Like the past month of my life is like, or like 2 months of my life have just been crazy, you know? And it was pretty surreal, man. It took me a little bit to get adjusted back to everything moved so fast. Technology had jumped so far ahead. And so it took me a while to get back in, but I found a good gym. I found a coach that was like a father figure to me. And yeah, we ran with it. And
so what happened after? So you got bailed out, but so you still had the charge coming. What happened with that charge?
So I started training. I think I had like 2 amateur fights. Pushed the court date back, I had a public defender. My aunt was a social worker in this county. So she found me like the best public defender because I didn't have no money. And they kept pushing out. I had all these fights. I was doing good things. I was passing all my drug tests. I was on point. Like anything they asked me to do, I would go above and beyond. Like I was just like, I'm not going back to jail. I really hope it was like pre-trial. I went to the trial and the judge said, because you've been in trouble for the past 5 years, so they had no idea about Spain. And he's like, that's unheard of that you haven't been in trouble. Had the whole team behind me. My whole team at Factory X showed up and went in the seat. Maybe not the whole, but there was probably like 15 people there. My aunt had a speech. My coach had a speech. And the judge was like, man, just seeing everything, seems like you have a future. I don't want to give you any more. Because I was looking at 4 to 6. And he says, because of everything you've been doing and you haven't been in trouble for the past 5 years, we're going to give you no more jail, no extra fines, which I already owed like 30 grand. And we're just going to give you 2 years of probation. Wow. And my probation officer ended up being a huge fan of mine and was the coolest. Like usually you can get a bad probation officer. I just showed her all my fights. I gave her signed posters, and to this day I would send her stuff and so it worked out, man. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Wow, what a story.
That is amazing.
I mean, that's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard somebody go
it's
through.
An episode of Locked Up Abroad.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
This episode of Locked Up Abroad.
Yeah, I should do that. I don't know why I haven't in so long. I mean,
is that show still on? Because I used to know the people that were produced. I got interviewed to be on the show once, but I never actually got kidnapped or locked up, but they still did the interview.
Well, if you have the connection, you should.
I'll reach out.
It's crazy though. Like I have a movie deal in my email right now, ready to sign. But I got flown out. My first win in the LFA. I got flown out to Hollywood to get signed by CAA, and they showed me the Avenue of the Stars, and but we just need you to sign your life rights now.
Yeah.
Like me and my manager have been going down this road. HBO's Real Sports wanted to do a story, and it's just they want to do it their way, and they want to take the life rights. And I just want to do it a certain way. I want to not just glorify the bad stuff. I want the redemption side to really. I want the faith to be in there, and so it's just been. It's gonna come, and it's really lit a fire under me. I don't know if I should say it, but I'm gonna. ESPN was gonna do a whole 30 for 30 on me. They went to the UFC and said we just need all the licensing for his footage. And the UFC said because he's lost his last fight and his inactivity, we're not gonna not gonna endorse this right now.
Come on, Uncle Dana. Come on.
So and I get it, man. It's a business. It's just they see it as not marketable right now. They want the real marketable stuff, and it's cool. But it lit a fire under me, and I'm ready to prove them wrong. And I'm gonna go get this win, and I'm gonna keep getting wins, and they won't be able to deny me.
Yeah.
Is your story is that story out there? Like what you just broke down?
Yeah, it is.
God damn.
Yeah, the Players Tribune did a really good article on it. If you read that, you get a more in depth. It's Derek Jeter's company. They flew me out to New York and did a really good piece on it, written up. And there's a few like kind of doc series on it that not 100% the top of the line professional, but you get the gist of the story. But it's common, man. It's my troubles have become a testimony, and I never really had a mentor or anyone that went through what I went through that I could look to and be like, I need to follow that example. Like, so if I could be that for someone, and be like, man, this kid, or give someone hope, that's what it's about to me.
Right on. Such a crazy story, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your next fight is coming up. What's the schedule?
So I haven't put a date on it yet. They asked me if I'm available in January. I said, let me do the stem cell. Let me just see what the recovery is like, because I'm doing the shoulder and the wrist. So, it could be like a month. And I just want to feel all the way good, man. Like if I feel good, like I'm ready. But this is the first time I haven't rushed it. Like when I first got in the UFC, between fighting on Contender Series, fighting for the LFA belt, and then 1 year I fought 6 times. So it's like, and I just was like, yep, let's go, push this injury off, let's go. And for once, I'm not like 100% pressed, but I still have that sense of urgency. So I'm hoping January, February. Long story short, but I'm still just waiting for I feel good, and you gotta get past the mental hurdles too. I've been here before. Your body's scared to get hit in the head.
Sure.
That was my first sparring back. I'm like hesitant, timing's off, really humbling. But I've been here before. You got it. Every time you get that confidence up, take a few shots. I'm good. Yeah. I feel good, and that confidence grows, and it's been a hell of a ride, man. Let me tell you, the ups, the downs, it's all gonna get revealed. There's a lot more to that in the time that I've been injured. I've overcome skin disease, ulcerative colitis, the thyroid's healing. I've just damaged my body a lot from the drugs I've done, the prisons I've been in, the fights. But I think it's gonna be an amazing. It's poetic almost, the comeback story, and I think Joe Rogan will get me on his podcast. We'll be able to share it. It was kind of ironic. Will Harris gave me a shout out. Also another amazing guy to tell your story, Will Harris. He actually is probably going to come down here soon. So I feel like everything's aligning. God's path is the one I'm on. So I'm not stressing.
Man, that's incredible. I had heard what you had talked to the patients about, but hearing the stories in prison and the Con Air and Rikers Island and those, that's an incredible story. You've overcome a lot, and now you're clean, which, it's a battle. We've worked with a lot of addicts over the years, and we know it's a battle. So
Yeah. It's an everyday battle. It's all about walking in a new identity that, hey, this is not an option. Because if you stay in that old identity, well, I'm mad. Well, these guys are doing it. That little voice that gives you all the excuses to do something. And as you guys know, working with addicts, it's just about being that new person, that new identity. And for me, the Lord has helped me do that. And yeah, man, it's coming. It's coming. I don't get too loud with it because the right time it'll be there.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a powerful testimony. I know that there's a lot of people that will connect with it, and it's inspirational. Like I said, I don't know of another story. I'm trying to think of. I don't know of another fighter that has a similar story, at least in MMA. It's
the
powerful.
patients really enjoyed it so people might not know what we're talking about too. So we have the cancer patients. We do a class here called Power of the Mind, and Ian and I did the class together, and he came up and shared his testimony and his life story and stuff. And those people are in the fight of their lives as well. And one of the benefits of having the stem cell program is having guys like you come down and share how they win their fight, right?
Yeah.
And it encourages them and it inspires them. And we got a lot of good feedback from last time you were here.
That's awesome, man. Because it wrecked me too, honestly. Like, people don't realize, like, I'm telling my story, boo-hoo, I'm injured, this and that. These people are fighting for their life, man. The look on their eyes. Like, we're all fighters. And these people are in the biggest fight there is for their life. And I'm standing in front of these guys. And yeah, I can give them a little bit. But it inspired me talking to them because I'm like, these guys are here. They're on their last leg. And they're fighting with every ounce, with every bit, not just physically, mentally, financially, everything they got, they're fighting for. And so that was a really cool experience for me. And it's crazy. I've been speaking a lot more as well, sharing that testimony. I've been doing it at rehabs, churches, schools, halfway houses, football teams. And that's also been a calling on my life as well. So a lot of doors are opening. I commentated at XMMA. And so there's doors opening. There's unfinished business in the UFC for me. And CPI is a huge part of this testimony. So I really appreciate you guys. Not only for having me the first time, but inviting me back. And wow, this place is, this is just on another level. And
well, we're glad you came back because we're all about the data here. And it's one thing for someone to say, "Hey, I feel better. My shoulder works a little bit better." But we've developed a program. Ed had a really good idea where, we want people to come back every 3 months or 6 months, whatever it is. Yeah. Because we feel like we have an amazing product. Yeah. But talk's cheap, right? We need to have the actual proof.
Yeah, we need before and after scans, and you know, it's one thing anecdotally, but we want to be able to show it and publish it. And so, and from a fighter's perspective, it's how do you make things better? Well, you have good objectivity. Yeah, this is what it is or isn't.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, and the data will show. And I'm excited. You guys, we just did blood work. You're going to see my new thyroid results. We've seen it jump from hypo to hyper. So without medication, I believe it's going to be close to spot on. And I have that brain mapping, right? You see huge spots of red on my left side, the side I took a kick. So once this is done, I'm going to give it a few months. I'm going to go back and test. And I believe you're not going to see anything there. And it's going to be cool to be able to share that data because you guys obviously have a product that works. It does. But now you're getting the data for it. You're getting the publicity, and it shows. You guys are taking it to the next level, being able to house more people and take more people on. When I came here, it was 2 people. Now there's probably 14 people. So it just shows the product. The people are feeling the results. Word's getting out, and it's really cool to see what you guys are doing, the lives you're affecting, and just being able to share that with more people.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because there's four of you guys are back, right? So we got a bunch of people downstairs, but 4 people decided to come back and do more. So it's great to know that's working for people and that they want to come back and keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, thanks for hanging out with us, man, and having this conversation. I'm inspired. I'm pumped up, man. It's just a great story. I'm blown away.
Yeah.
And I have
I'm ready for the movie.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's gonna play you in the movie on the big
I
screen?
know, man. My wife wants what's the Australian guy? Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
Chris
I
Hemsworth.
think
Who does she want to play her?
for me, yeah, right. For me, I would love like I was just watching Catch Me If You Can. Like a young Leonardo would have been like,
Yeah.
it would have been like a good like fit. I feel like, or like when he played it in the beach, that was like,
That was a great movie.
that's a
great
good
story.
movie. Yeah. So I vibe with that. There's no movie like my story. I've looked for it. I've looked for books. I've been searching for it, and I feel like this world in the state that it's in right now, it needs a good redemption story. It wants a good redemption story. A lot of people are struggling from COVID. A lot of people are struggling, and the more you see it, the more I think this world needs places like this who give people a second chance in their health, can keep people younger, can bounce people back from horrific injuries, and also a inspirational story, because it's not only stem cells, it's not only physical, it's mental too.
Yeah.
And you need that hope.
Yeah, man.
That's a big thing for us, the mental game, especially
Yeah.
with the cancer patients.
Absolutely. And that's what was so cool. And if they want to do it again, I'm willing to share.
I'm sure they would love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. A whole new group of people. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome.
Well, before we take out, I just want to give a shout out to the New York prisons. Epstein didn't kill himself. And,
Yeah, straight up. Yeah. Close Rikers Island down, please. Why is it
close
still
down.
open?
Yeah.
Did you guys see the Khalif Broder documentary?
I didn't. I am familiar with Rikers though, because I grew up outside
Bro.
New York.
Jay-Z produced this story about this young black kid who got locked up injustice, like he didn't do it when he was 16.
Yeah.
They kept him there till he was 22 because he wouldn't say I'm guilty and just take the slap on the wrist.
Oh,
He
wow.
stood up for what he believed in. He said, no, I'm not guilty. They tortured him. They beat him. They starved him. And he got out, and he became kind of famous because of the documentary, and people were trying to rob him, and he took his life, man.
Oh.
And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he jumped out of his window with the electrical cord of the AC unit, and it's sad, bro. And he was innocent the whole time.
Wow.
And you see what he did to him. Well, I just can't believe that prison's still open after that movie was made. But either way, if you're watching this, close that prison down. And yeah, man, thank you guys. I don't want to end on a negative note, but yeah, thank you guys for having me again. And it's cool to see, and just hearing too, like Eric Anders is coming back. He's the one who kind of put me on it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Man.
Great guy.
Thanks so much, Ian. Great talking
All
to
right,
you.
buddy.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
so much.